Mr. President, you know, we've had a vote this morning, and a lot of people, I've been on the phone today, are not real sure what we did with that vote this morning. We had the vote this morning because we had to move forward in order to consider the final consideration of this great nominee tomorrow. And it was filibustered by the Democrats, and of course we had to do a cloture vote. I know it's somewhat in the weeds here, but that's what we have to do, and that vote took place. So tomorrow at some time we will actually have this vote. And I start off with saying that I'm just enthusiastically a yes tomorrow. That's I think that goes without saying. I met with Judge Kavanaugh in my office back when he was first nominated. In fact, I'd studied him before. I remembered him when he was nominated the first time back 6 years ago, and I talked to him at that time. And I thought, well, has he really changed that much? Is it necessary? And I even said, it's really not necessary. I've followed your career and all of that, but he came by anyway. And the thing that I like, because I'm not a lawyer, the things that he did of just show him as a human being more than just a nominee for a judge on the United States Supreme Court. The human things that he did, I know for a fact, because I talked to her, one of his good friends who died, had a wife and two girls, like his two girls, and when back to school night comes, he takes those two girls with his to back to school night. This is the type of thing that he does. We have heard all the warm and things about his what he's done as a coach and these things. Well, that's the human being I knew, and it wasn't necessary because I was sold on him anyway after looking at his record. On the eve of Kavanaugh's nomination, heading towards certain confirmation, we were hit by a bomb. It was an uncorroborated attack that the Democrats sat on for 2 months. Now, that's critical. You got to stop and think about that. Why else would they take something that they thought was so important to try to destroy this fine man and wait for 2 months, sit on it? You know, I'm surprised that they didn't let it slip just because they wanted to make sure people were talking about it. But the details of the allegation were the worst kinds: an aggressive, ugly sexual attack. You know, sexual assault and violence is wrong, period. And it's wrong that so many women who experience sexual assault and harassment do not feel empowered to come forward even until years later, and maybe never. And it's also unjust for someone to be accused of a crime that he or she did not commit and be convicted in the court of public opinion without any evidence or corroborative accounts. It's hard to wrap your head around the fact that someone who has been in the public eye for decades, respected by his colleagues, his law clerks, his students, his friends, his family, everyone, and never had a whisper of wrongdoing in all those years. All of a sudden, he's suddenly accused of such a heinous crime. Like many Americans, I watched the hearings last Thursday in the hope that it would provide more clarity and some answers, and I think it did. It would be easy to get wrapped up in the conflicting media coverage and all this spin. So instead, I looked at what we know to be true. What we know to be true. The people Dr. Ford places at the scene that night have either denied the events or do not recall any party or gathering that matches her description. Now, so that is an idle accusation. Her long-life friend, in fact, some people characterize her as her best friend, and it's one that Dr. Ford named in her allegations as the only other girl at that small gathering. So here's a small gathering. She's accusing him of misbehavior, and there's one other girl there, and once and she says, the other girl says that she does not know Brett Kavanaugh and has never attended a party where he was there. I mean, it can't be more definite than that, and that's from her best friend. When Dr. Ford testified, his testimony is compared to other statements she made to her therapist, to the Washington Post, to the ranking member, and her statement for the polygraph exam. There are various inconsistencies that should not be ignored. Dr. Ford's inability to remember key details of the alleged attack, like things like the date, the place, the other circumstances surrounding the event that places Judge Kavanaugh in a difficult position to defend himself as Democrats and the media unjustly shift the burden of proof from the accuser to the accused. I don't remember that happening before. This is still America. And from the beginning, Judge Kavanaugh has categorically denied the accusations and has not wavered or equivocated on this point. He's cooperated with the Judiciary's committee, that's Senator Grassley's committee, their investigation at every step of the way, including speaking with committee staff under oath several times over the course of the last couple of weeks and providing documentation to help clear his name. He's done it all. Everything we've asked of him, he's done. On the other hand, Dr. Ford's attorneys have refused to turn over the keys evidence that her testimony relied on to corroborate her claims. Her therapist's notes that were shown to the Washington Post, but not to the committee, messages she exchanged with the reporter, the documentation, the recordings related to the polygraph test she took in early August, they were refusing to turn over key evidence. So they didn't have any evidence they could turn over. So no wonder there's no witnesses that can corroborate the accusations that's been made against this fine man. Now, I'm not going to go into the other allegations. There are two others that came along. The timing of this is kind of interesting. First of all, they withheld this document that Dr. Ford had for 2 months. It's hard to keep a secret around this place, and I'm surprised that didn't come out. But they did it for a purpose. What do you think that purpose is? What other purpose could it be other than waiting to the last minute and coming out with something that was never discussed before, no accusation was made, and so that's what happened. And based on what we know, the totality condemned anyone on an offense that has been denied and not proven. It would be caution to anyone else against doing the same thing. John Adams, our second president of the United States, he wrote, now listen to this, Mr. President. He said, and this is a quote, he said, "But if innocence itself is brought to the bar and condemned, perhaps to die, then the citizen will say, whether I do good or whether I do evil is immaterial, for innocence itself is no protection. And if such an idea is that we were to take a hold in the mind of a citizen, that would be the end of security whatsoever." That's what he said. Let's look at what the scriptures say. It's in Numbers 35:30. It says, quote, "If anyone kills a person, the murderer shall be put to death on the evidence of witnesses. But no person shall be put to death on the testimony of one witness." Now think about that. That's a direct violation of what they're trying to do. And so you've got John Adams, you've got the Bible, and then there's our judicial system. It's reflected in our judicial system as well. Quote, "innocent until proven guilty," unquote. It's more than just a phrase. It's a cornerstone of the rule of law. Since before our founding, it was, and its wisdom has been borne out time and time again throughout history. Innocent until proven guilty. That's really what's on trial here. Innocent until proven guilty. I've never seen this happen before, and I've been around for a long time. Cut through the drama and the focus on the facts. That's why I continue to support Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation. Judge Kavanaugh's name has been unjustly run through the mud by these subsequent allegations that even the New York Times did not deem fit to print, or were brought forth by a known publicity seeker with an axe to grind against the president, looking for nothing but attention and more fame for himself. I'm dismayed by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that have taken these uncorroborated and fantastical allegations at face value and run with them. I feel the Democrats showed their hand in the days since last week's hearing and the agreement on the supplemental FBI background investigation that was made. The narrative has shifted from allegations of sexual misconduct to ones of judicial temperament, as my friend from Missouri pointed out. Now, I'm not a lawyer, But everyone knows the saying that if the law is on your side, argue the law. If the facts are on your side, argue the facts. If neither the facts nor the law are on your side, pound the table. And that's what we're hearing right now. And you've got the difference here is that the Democrats are trying to outdo each other in pounding the table. They know the allegations are not proven. They know that Judge Kavanaugh remains committed to his innocence and the process. And they know that Republicans will remain committed to the facts. So they must change tactics, moving the goalposts one more time, and attack him on other grounds. The first of these is to question his temperament, because he defended himself, his family, his career, his name so forcefully and passionately, he did not demonstrate the calm, measured, detached demeanor that one should expect of a judge. Well, the problem with this characterization is that it ignores the fact that Judge Kavanaugh was not a disinterested party hearing the arguments of opposing counsel. He was the subject of the accusations, and it was that he that was being attacked and condemned. There's a big difference there. I dare anyone to be calm and dispassionate if they had to sit by for 10 days and watch and listen to everyone they worked for and built over a long career and public service being torn down in an instant without any proof at all. To see your high school yearbook picked apart by conspiracy theorists who seek nefarious meanings behind juvenile jokes and 30-year-old slang. To see your friends and family be threatened and harassed, and you can do nothing to stop the angry mob. This idea completely ignores the fact that Judge Kavanaugh has proven over 12 years that he's been on the bench of the second most powerful court in the country, that he does have the temperament we look for in our judges. This fact is supported by unanimous, well-qualified ABA rating, which is considered to be the gold standard from the Democrats, and the countless testimonies by people across the political spectrum that have worked with him and argued a case in front of him and know him well. In the last few days, the discourse has further devolved into perjury claims based on the judge's drinking habits in high school and college. I'll leave the legal arguments to those more knowledgeable than me, that department, who had thoroughly debunked the particular myth, but suffice it to say that he testified he liked beer. He drank beer, and that sometimes he drank too much. You know, he did some things in high school and college maybe he thinks now he shouldn't have done, but that's what he did. He wasn't hiding anything when it came to drinking in his youth. He said that right up front in one of the earlier hearings. 6 background test investigations by the FBI over the course of a lengthy public service. Decades in the public eye, and never has anyone brought any allegations or concerns to the attention of the investigators or the press in all that time. You know, I was here when he was up for the appellate judgeship, and none of this came up at that time. And there is a difference here. I think that the other side is, you know, let's face it. They said, the Democrats said that at the very first, it doesn't matter who our president nominates to be on the federal bench, we're going to oppose him. And so here we have opposing him. Well, with each new breathlessly reported account of a party alleged ice-throwing incident or juvenile jokes without passing gas or cussing from the early to the middle 1980s, it becomes clearer and clearer that Democrats are not serious, and they're concerned about the more serious allegations that focus on of their attacks become more and more absurd and desperate. The fact that they have to focus on Judge Kavanaugh's school days further reinforces the idea that Brett has led an exemplary life as a husband, a father, a public servant. I'd like to take a moment to commend my good friend from Iowa, the chairman of the Judicial Committee. You know, my wife called this morning and she said, be sure that you single out him and set him down and tell him how proud I am of him. You know, my wife and I have been married for 59 years. And when my wife is proud, I'm proud. And so Once made aware of the allegations that the Democrats for weeks and the staff had the right to investigate, they postponed the committee. This is the chairman we're talking about. Postponed the committee vote, gathered statements and other evidence, and offered Dr. Ford the opportunity to provide her testimony in any way that would be comfortable to her, eventually scheduling a follow-up hearing. And all along the way, Dr. Ford and Judge Kavanaugh were treated by our chairman of the committee with the respect that they deserved and should have received starting back when the allegation was first brought to our attention. He and his staff have kept us informed of the status of the various investigations at almost every step of the process. The chairman has built a well-deserved reputation for protecting whistleblowers. This is one of the things he's been outspoken on for a long time. And he's protected them over the course of his career. He's proven himself once again during this process. I look forward to voting for Judge Kavanaugh. And, you know, I would hope that we can put an end to the search and destroy campaign that's being wedged by the Democrats and their enablers in this media, but I won't hold my breath.